Welcome to the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast, where we empower you with weight loss surgery, nutrition knowledge, mindset advice, and inspiration so you succeed in your weight and health journey. I'm your host, Jane Stoltz, and I am a bariatric dietitian who has helped over 1,300 people on their weight loss surgery journeys. I'm also a solo mum, lover of long walks while listening to podcasts, partial to a glass of wine, and the ocean is my happy place. Join me as I dive deep into bariatric nutrition and lifestyle topics and deliver them to you in bite-sized, palatable episodes every Monday. Now let's go. Welcome to the Bariatric Nutrition Coach podcast, and today's episode I have a wonderful guest with me. Her name is Ashley, and she has been a client of mine for nearly 9 months. We have worked together and we've had lots of laughs along the way. And I'm so excited that she's joining me today to chat about her weight loss surgery journey. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I've never been on a podcast before, so I feel really special. So thank you for inviting me.
You're so welcome. What I do with guests, I actually will hand it over to you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing about yourself, where you are, and then we're going to go more into your weight loss surgery journey, because I know people are going to find it really interesting and motivational, because you have been really brave, and I'll share why I know you're brave as we go through. And what would you like people to know about you?
Yeah, so I am in my early 30s and I am a teacher. So I have been teaching for, 9 years now. That seems really long to me, but and I've taught everything from elementary school, like second grade, all the way up to sixth grade. Currently, I'm an English teacher in sixth grade, and I'm actually teaching at an international school in China. I live in Guangzhou, China. And so I've been here for 3 years. It's just me. I decided to come. I grew up overseas, so moving internationally was already a big part of my life. So I decided, when things kind of, I needed a change in the United States, I decided to come out and teach internationally. So that's why I'm here now. And I will actually be moving to another part of China later this summer. I'll get to start at a brand new school. I'm going to be one of the founding members, which I'm really excited about. It's been a huge challenge, but I'm really excited for it too. So I'll be in China for another 3 years. Fantastic. So like I said, it's just me in China. I have my dog with me and we're just kind of kicking around.
That's wonderful. And you've just given a little snapshot of who you are, and we're going to go through more because I know there's lots more. Now, I would love to ask you, when did your weight loss surgery journey start? Like, when did you start thinking about it? How long ago?
Yeah, so it's been something that I have had in the back of my mind for quite a long time, actually, for many years, for a couple of reasons. My dad actually went through this. He had his bariatric surgery I think 12 or 13 years ago. So we kind of went through that with him as a family. And just because of that, it was just something that I have always had in the back of my mind that, genetically, I take after him very much so. And so I've always had a bigger body. I've always been someone who and I've always felt like very strong and like healthy in my bigger body. Socially, that's a different thing, but I've always felt physically very strong. But I knew it was something that may come up in the future, especially as he went through his surgery, just because I take after him so much. But it wasn't something that I really started considering that I really seriously considered until probably about January, February of last year. And that was when, for the first time, I recognized that I was really sick. So there was a lot of things happening where I was at a point where especially with like sleeping, it had gotten so bad that I would sleep, like I would go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep and wake up and feel as if I hadn't slept at all. I was having problems staying awake in any capacity. I would go to work, and if I wasn't up teaching in front of my kids, the moment I sat down, I would start to shut down. Like it wasn't even like, oh, I'm tired, I'm sleepy. It was like my body just like couldn't handle it anymore. So we did some sleep tests with the doctors here, and like, oh my gosh, you have severe sleep apnea. And it was getting to be where like I was getting only like 75% oxygen at night. I had like over 150 incidences of like obstruction, like just some crazy numbers. I was having problems with my gallbladder, so I was in pain a lot, where I would eat something and it would either cause me pain or I would throw up right after, just because like I couldn't take it. So just a lot of kind of compounding things where I was really sick. And it was at that time where I thought, because I've tried everything under the sun, I have done every form of eating and diet and pills and just everything possible. And so this was kind of like, okay, this is where I need to look to now. And this is kind of the direction that I need to go to see how to fix what's happening inside my body and try to kind of figure out some of these issues that are happening with my, eating and digestion and things like that. So that's when, January of last year is when I said, I got to look at this seriously. And then I started meeting with doctors here in China. And that was an experience, trying to find someone who A, knew what bariatric surgery was, B, could speak English or had a translation service. And there's this foreigner specialty hospital, I guess you could say, charging outrageous prices. And so also trying to find somewhere where I was comfortable paying that much and things like that. I had a lot of fights with the insurance and things like that. But I found a hospital who is very capable. He's actually the doctor who did my surgery is one who's done it, like kind of introduced it to China. So I felt very confident in that. When I had my surgery July 8th of last year.
And that's why I said brave. Not only like to have surgery is a brave move, it is a brave decision, but to also be in a foreign country, I really take my hat off to you. So thank you for sharing all that. That is wonderful. So you had your surgery, and I'm thinking about having surgery and after surgery, what were some of your greatest concerns? What was coming up for you when you were thinking about it?
Yeah, so I think there were like two main concerns that I had going through this. One was like kind of an internal fear where I just kept thinking, I'm going to go through all this. I'm going to go through surgery and pay for this thing and have this experience, and it's just not going to work. I just knew it. I just knew, and I had so much doubt and like so little faith in myself, because I just felt like, it was my fault. I had gotten to this place, and that, I had ruined my body, and that was my fault. And so I was really worried, to go through all this, and I was just going to ruin it again. Like, I just felt like that. And so I was so, and I still have those. I still worry about that. It kind of catches me off guard a little bit sometimes, where I'm like, I'm doing so great. And then like, sometimes I'll be like, oh no, it still kind of creeps up. I just like really struggle to believe like this can be a lasting solution. And I think probably just because, we're so steeped in like diet culture and the next thing and the, the next 5 pounds or whatever it might be, where it just nothing had held for my whole life. So that was the biggest one. And then I think like going into it, it's not as much a concern anymore, but going into it, one thing to know about me is like I'm super independent. And so Like it's really hard for me to, and I also don't like ever want to like burden anybody, or like, I'm like, I can just do it myself. It's fine. I got it. I can take care of it. So, and we have a really intense like work ethic in my family, maybe a little too much sometimes, but, but we're firm believers in like, we can do it through hard work. Like that was something I have been brought up of. It's, a mantra kind of I live by. And I was really, I don't know what the right word is for this, but I just felt like I was cheating almost. Like I was just kind of taking away, like I couldn't do it. I couldn't actually do it. So I was just going through surgery. And so I felt like I didn't want to talk about it with a lot of people, especially with my family. My parents knew. They were super supportive from the first, but I had this weird, like, yeah, it felt like almost like cheating. I was a little bit ashamed that I had to resort to surgery, like, and I just couldn't just get it together and get my body right,
Yeah, that's really common, Ashley. People feel ashamed. It's great for you to talk about that because it doesn't get talked about, I think, enough. It's a really common thing that I hear when I'm on, just the one-on-one chats. When you get one-on-one with people, they share that. They don't always share it in a group. So thank you for sharing that. That's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I think it was the hardest to talk about with people that I was closest to, which is surprising to me. Like I said, my parents were super on board. They're very like supportive. Like I said, my dad's gone through it, so he understood where I was coming from. My mom, she's been by his side, so like they're super supportive. But for other members of my family, I actually did not tell them until weeks after I had the surgery. I didn't mention it at all. I didn't tell them I was going into the hospital. Like I didn't say anything to them. I was just, because I was so worried about that, because I felt like kind of a failure. And I was worried that that's how they would see me, like, oh, I'm just giving up kind of a thing.
You didn't want to feel judged. You didn't want judgment. If you are in the weight loss phase after your bariatric surgery, well, listen up, as I have a wonderful resource you are going to love. And yes, it's free. It's called Supercharge Your Weight Loss Success Starter Kit. It's a 3-day mini course where I take you through the steps to supercharge your weight loss. You will become clear on what habits are taking you out of your weight loss zone, and which are the key habits you personally need to foster to move back into where you want to be. Yes, to losing weight. Sound good? If yes, grab this free resource. The link is in the show notes. And how did it feel being in a country by yourself after having surgery, and how did that feel?
Yeah, actually, it was a really interesting experience because, like I said, I'm super independent. I'm not one to like ask people for help, which I should, but so like, I have a really, really strong support system here in China. I have amazing coworkers and people that I've grown really, really close to. So luckily, I had people that I could confide in and like talk to through the process. But it was kind of funny because like before, everyone's like, I'm gonna come see you, let me come help you in the hospital or whatever, and I was like, no, like, please don't, I don't want anybody to come see me. But there was a moment, and I had been talking to my parents, the whole time there, and so I didn't feel alone before the surgery, and they knew all about it. I kind of kept them updated with the schedule and everything. So I wasn't like hurting before, like kind of emotionally hurting. But there was one moment they were wheeling me, and I had been prepped, and it was the morning of the surgery, and I was like just laying in the gurney, and they like wheeled us over. So like how it was, at least in my hospital in China, is they have everyone in their wing, and then they just bring all of the people who are going to have surgery that day. They like bring them to this holding area. So we're all just like laying in this gurney,
lined up, like ready to go.
Like kind of lined up. Yeah. And like mine was first thing in the morning. So, So we were all just like lined up, lying on our gurneys or whatever, and like waiting for the surgery wing to open, like kind of like a store. It was kind of a surreal experience. And then the doors open and they wheel you to your specific like operating room or whatever. And I was with all these other people. They all had people with them, and not a lot because we were still in the pandemic era. So people coming was very, very limited. You can only have like 1 or 2 people with you at a time, but they all had at least one person with them and like kind of waving in. And there was just like one moment as I was rolling through the doors where I was like, it just like hit me that I was alone and that I didn't have my family, and that was really scary for me for that moment. But coming back, like I said, I had such a strong support system, and I had people coming and like helping me, and people like helped me, you know, get food, or, you know, for like I had one friend who like just made a big pot of broth because I could only drink things, you know, for the first week. And she's like, I'll make you chicken broth. And so she like got a fresh chicken and, you know, like made stuff for me, which was awesome. And so I felt very, very lucky. Not lucky. I felt very privileged that I had people who were not my family, who I'd only known, you know, some of them for only a few months, who were willing to like go out of their way to help carry in groceries or to check in on me or to walk my dog when she needed it. And I just like didn't have enough energy to get out. So luckily I felt it was scary, you know, and it was the Chinese way of doing medicine is very different. So there was a lot of like culture clash within the hospital, I felt, which was really hard. But I had some, I have great friends. So
Lovely. And Ashley, you know, have those perfectionistic tendencies, that really working hard, wanting to get it right.
Yeah.
How did that come up for you, especially the early days? How did that feel for you?
You know, it was, so a lot of that, you know, like that, you know, fear of like that judgment coming in and like wanting to do well and all this stuff. It was a really interesting transition period right after the surgery. So one thing I'm super grateful is, I know I've mentioned it several times, but my dad went through this as well. And he has been so great for me to like to talk to about and kind of go through this journey with. But one thing that came up that I struggled with, especially at the beginning, is, you know, he would talk about, oh, you know, you can only eat this, or I only have this much, or, you know, you have to do these certain steps. And from his experience, and this is what has worked for him, and he's done amazingly well after the surgeries. And you know, I really honor my dad and everything that he's gone through and everything he's taught me. But it would be things where he'd be like, oh, I could not eat bread for the first year or something. I just was so sick. And I was like, oh, I had some bread like last night, like, you know, and it didn't bother me. And so I would start to get really worried, like, oh my gosh. And that's where that kind of fear of like, I'm already failing. It's been 2 months and I'm already failing because like we're in a different place. And it took me a really long time to figure out that it's okay, that like that's what happened for him.
Yes, and what's right for you.
What's right for me, and like, you know, that kind of thing. And so that was one aspect of it. And that other aspect is I think I come up more across now, and where kind of some of my fears are in that, where I'm in that stage where it's kind of getting to be a little bit more normal, and like I've got my routine, and I know kind of what to eat when and how much, and I'm kind of trying to balance those things. And, you know, just things that I worry about, oh, am I falling back into the old patterns? Or, you know, it's really tied into that, like that fear of failure, like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to ruin everything, you know, because I'm getting complacent, or I've eaten too many sweets, or, oh, I had way too much, or, you know, at dinner the other night. And some of those kind of thoughts really are starting to creep back in, instead of kind of embracing, where I'm at today and my successes so far and my continued successes. I tend to focus on some of those things like, oh, I'm not eating enough protein, or I didn't get enough water today, or I'm not tracking perfectly, or those kind of things that are excellent tools that can become overwhelming because I'm not doing it exactly right.
Yeah, definitely. The early to medium days can be a bit of not a honeymoon period, but it's all new. And then what can happen is, for many people, even though, you are still losing weight, when you go into that maintenance and old habits, that can be harder in some ways, because it's now like, okay, this is for the rest of my life. And that, I think, a lot harder for many people. Also, it's really about, we've talked a lot about habits. We've talked a lot about building those habits, but also not being rigid. And I think you mentioned that, that you need to find balance, and you need to give yourself some grace and doing what you do most of the time, building those habits, and also that mindset about it's not a dieting mindset. Even though you are still losing weight, you're still kind of moving into more of a maintenance mindset, because you've moved out of that kind of those early stages, and it becomes more day to day. If you could give yourself, and this is a hard one, but if you could give yourself any pre-surgery advice, what advice would you give yourself?
I think one thing that has really helped me is having a wide variety of ways to measure my successes. Of course, like I've tracked weight and things like that, and I feel like that was an important one for me. I totally understand how that can be dangerous for people, or like that can be triggering, and it can be really hard. But having so many, like not just the weight, and not even just clothes are a big one for me too. I've had several things that I've been able to fit into, and I wear dresses like all the time, and so like it's fun when I have a tailor here in China, because fabric is so inexpensive right where I'm at. So I it's always fun when I get a new dress from her, and she's, oh, you're so small, you're getting so small. So so clothes are a great way, but even something as simple as I had an experience a few weeks ago where I was at home grading, and I just stopped for a second and realized that I had been sitting cross-legged on my couch for I don't even know how long, like an hour or 2 hours, something like that, where I'd just been grading cross-legged on my couch. And I was like so excited by that. And as simple as that sounds, like I haven't been able to sit cross-legged for a while, a long time. It's like to do that without my limbs going numb, or like to be able to unfold my legs and my knees aren't hurting, or like things like that, So I really try and find, just when I can stop and say, hey, look at this, like how cool is this, and like celebrate those things, having a wide range of stuff to look at.
And that is wonderful, because so often people start their journey and it's just all about the scales and all about the weight. The pitfall, or the reason why we want to break away from that, is that weight loss is going to slow down, and it's also going to stop the start. And it's lovely to broaden where you see your wins and celebrate. So that's lovely. And also riding a bike.
Yes, that is something really exciting that I've been able to do. So I love bike riding, but again, it's something that I just haven't been able to do for so many years. And I just got a bike. That was a whole adventure on its own.
Ride a bike.
So, and it was so fun. The first day I got it, I rode, so I was at a mall, it's like a 10-minute car ride or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to ride it home, mostly because I don't know how to get it in the taxi. So I was like, I'll just ride it home. And I turned on the like directions on maps, and it was like, oh, you'll get home in 16 minutes. I was like, great. So I started going, and like 40 minutes later, I got home. It took just so long. But even then, again, that would have been an opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, it took me so long. And I'm not, why did I get this? Like, oh my, I could have gone down. I tried really hard to instead be like, oh my gosh, like I rode the bike all the way home. And so I tried to be really like excited about that. And then actually I just rode it to work this morning, which is, again, it was on my maps. It says, 16 minutes, and I made it in 20. So, like to be able to like see, oh, like, hey, even that is something that is coming down, that time I'm able to kind of power through. I didn't have to get up, and there's a slight hill right before I get to my work. So like, you'll like get up that tiny little hill. First time I rode to work, I had to get off and walk that hill, and now I can kind of power through it. And, so having some like, those kind of mile markers are really big for me, to be able to just kind of hop on the bike and go is fun.
Yeah. Fantastic. Good on you. I'm still waiting for a photo, but anyway.
Yes, I know.
You on it.
I really like, I swear I'm around people all day at school, and then the one moment I'm like, oh, I'm in the garage with my bike. There's no one here. Like, so.
It's wonderful. And I'd love to ask you next, what role, we've worked together for nearly 9 months, what role has support had in your journey? Support is such a big thing. What role has it had for you?
Yeah, I think it's been really important to have someone like you, like with me on this journey, because as great as like having my friends who have been amazing here in China, and as great as it is having like my family be on board and be super supportive, like they take care of a lot of the emotional support for me. And I know that's not the case for everyone, not everyone's family is going to react that way. Not everyone's friends are going to react that way. So luckily I have experienced really great emotional support there. But having someone like you where, okay, I got emotional support covered, but I need to understand, like, I remember asking you like, okay, we talk about protein all the time, but like, why? Like, like I just didn't understand why everyone in the bariatric community was like obsessed with like protein and why we eat like 80 to 90 grams a day. I'm like, okay. So just having kind of that kind of clarification, or something as simple as, I remember we talked about early days when I was like, I'm eating everything right, and I'm keeping my portion sizes small, but I'm feeling like super sick and like kind of nauseated. And I could not figure it out. And I remember you pointed out like, well, maybe you're just eating too fast. And to me, I thought I was eating pretty slowly. I probably was compared to what I had been, before. And I probably was eating much slower, but being able to have a tool and like suggestions from you to say like, hey, look at this like chew timer. I still use that. Like, I went on a trip and I've gotten to a place where I can kind of feel it out myself. I know kind of the rhythm of how my eating should go. But like, we went to Thailand for a short trip with friends. And I think I was just like so excited to eat Thai food again. So I was finding like, oh my gosh, I'm sick every night. What is going on? And it was one of those light bulbs. I have not been using my chew timer. And so like I got, next meal, I got that out and I was not sick anymore. So just having those kind of like that practical guidance, understanding like what's happening in your body, I think that's really important. Knowledge is power. The teacher says, right? Knowledge is power. But like, being able to understand what is going on and like what changes your body is experiencing at different stages. I think it's really important to then kind of make informed decisions about things and trying new things and altering your routine. And and of course, like if you don't have the emotional support, I think you can get that from your nutritionist or your dietitian, your whoever is there to support you. You're there for that too. I know I have definitely cried to you on the phone.
There is so much change after weight loss surgery, and I'm not a person that really uses the word journey a lot outside of this, but it is a journey and it changes over time, and things come up, I find, for people that they never thought were going to come up before surgery. People before surgery will say,
I'm concerned about this and this. And then after surgery, that's a breeze. Other things come up,
Yeah.
And I love it when also people do ask, like, why do I do this? Because I think understanding things in depth, why you're being asked to do things is really wonderful. And
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, your relationship with food and nutrition, how has that changed since your surgery?
Yeah, I think that has been a really interesting thing, because, I grew up with food as being like a really important part of a lot of things for me, like a part of my family culture. It's a part of my church going culture. It's part of, it's something that I do. Like something that I love to bake. That is something I love to do. It's something that de-stresses me. Like I find if I can go out and bake, something I really enjoy. It's like relaxing for me. Trying new foods is really important for me. Again, I lived internationally my whole life. So I find that's really tied to like kind of integrating myself into a new culture as like getting into their food, and so food is a huge part of my life. And it's how I show affection. Like if I like someone, I'll bake for them. So it's something that's been really important to me my whole life. And in this process, like it was really important to me to not demonize food.
Yeah.
Or like, and I really I don't want to go into a space of I'm learning about things like intuitive eating and gentle nutrition and things like that more, where it's like I don't trying to have a neutral response to food. It's more just it's fuel for your body, and what is more efficient for your body and things like that.
Yes.
And so going through this has been really interesting. I find myself hyper fixated on protein sometimes, and so I need to like pull in other things. But I have found that I can still do all those other things that I have done with food, but fit it in. So like I bake for my coworkers all the time. In fact, I have a really close coworker whose nephew also goes to our school, and he's my official taste tester. So I'll always be like, hey, I have a new recipe, like I want you to try it, like tell me what you think. So I still bake for people all the time. I love it. I really love exploring new recipes. I still find myself I pulled from all sorts, not just bariatric quote unquote recipes, and so now it's a matter of like, okay, how can I make this function better for me? How do I add more protein if there's not enough, or how do I switch out more efficient carbs or things like that, which I'm really grateful for, because I that was something that I was really sad about beforehand. I was thinking about I'm not going to have food anymore, and that's going to be something that's taken away from me. And so one thing my dad said to me before, because I was expressing like, Dad, I love food. Like I really love food, and not just like I love eating, but I love food because it has so much meaning behind it, and there's so much you can discover through food. And I said, I'm really sad about that. I'm really sad that I'm not going to have that anymore. And he said, no. Like, this is the great thing about being a bariatric patient. You can go to the same restaurant, your whole life, and now it'll be a completely different experience because you can only eat like one thing from there. So you can go so many times now, and it's a new experience every time. And so I just really liked that kind of outlook on, it's not taking away from you. It's not taking away from what that means to me, like it's just you just have to adjust to a new way of looking at that. And like, how do we do it? How do we function that way? So
that's lovely, Ashley. Yeah. And it's finding that balance, and it's quality over quantity. Lovely. I love that, sharing that you can still bake, and your dad's been wonderful. I really appreciate your bravery and your openness for sharing, because I know people are going to get a lot out of this.
But yeah, I'm glad to share. It's something that I think people need to talk more about.
That is wonderful. So thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Thank you, Ashley, so much for being with us. If you are enjoying my podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. You will get alerted to every new episode that gets published. And if you are learning something from my podcast, I would love you to rate my podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much for your time. See you next week.